Have you ever been publicly humiliated at work because you were just 3 minutes late? It sounds unbelievable, right? But this happened to me, and the fallout became a turning point I never saw coming. Stick around until the end of this storytelling journey, because you'll witness the moment that changed everything for me. And I promise, you won't want to miss how it all unravels. I'm Marlo Baker, 34, a senior marketing strategist at a major consulting firm in Chicago. Until I stood by the elevator doors, takeout in hand, and heard my boss thunder across the office, "Do you think this company runs on your schedule, Marlo?" I thought I was respected, maybe even liked. But at that moment, I realized respect wasn't given, it's earned. And sometimes, the hardest way to earn it is by standing your ground. Keep watching, you'll see how a single oversight, 3 minutes late, exposed deeper issues that no one dared to confront. You'll hear how I unearthed a 6-month trail of harassment emails, expense fraud, and client bill padding. And most importantly, you'll discover the strategy I used to transform that chaos into opportunity, becoming acting chief marketing officer, and eventually landing the permanent role. So if you've ever felt invisible, undervalued, or afraid to speak up at work, this is especially for you. Stick around to the end. You'll leave with a blueprint to turn your own lowest moment into the platform for your greatest comeback. That afternoon, it felt like I disappeared. I was frozen, clutching warm takeout as every head in the open plan office whipped around. Glass partitions reflected my boss, Eric Varick Reynolds, crimson with rage. He paced backward, chair clattering behind him. 3 minutes late? Do you think this company runs on your schedule?" Silence followed. My heart was pounding so loud I thought my team might hear it. I wanted to explain I was helping an older woman whose wheelchair got stuck in the subway turnstile. But his laughter cut me off. "Always an excuse with you, right?" he said. "Maybe if you spent less time playing savior and more time on marketing, the Squante campaign wouldn't be behind schedule." My lunch was cold in my hands, and I tried to apologize. "Sorry I'm late," but he waved me off. "Read the handbook. Section 8 covers." He dismissed me, still steaming, as I returned to my desk without a word. Around me, colleagues pretended not to notice. A phone buzzed, heads down, eyes glued to screens. Only my assistant, Rena, offered a sympathetic glance. I hadn't spoken up, not because I was ashamed, but because something inside me had finally shattered. The humiliation tore away my confidence. I had always been the high performer, the one who stayed late, volunteered for extra duties, and helped others with IT issues when support was swamped. They'd called me reliable, dependable. But that day, Eric erased it with a few ugly words. Later that evening, after everyone left, I sat alone in my cubicle. Blink of overhead lights, empty desks. The transformation of my day played in my mind. The embarrassing confrontation, my cold lunch, the dread of what would come next. Rena asked if I was okay. I lied. "I'm fine." But inside, something hard and cold had taken root. What Varick had done wasn't just about tardiness. It was a power move, humiliation, control. And it had exposed something darker. It began 6 months earlier. I'd helped Za, a colleague from finance, recover some deleted emails. While assisting, I noticed messages from Varick. Unsettlingly personal notes to Za and other women. "Wear that blue dress again tomorrow," read one. "Clients respond better." That same day, another woman confided Varick had commented on her appearance during a meeting, smirking as he said she was client-friendly. I should have reported it immediately, but he was the boss's nephew, a top rainmaker. Everyone ignored it. So I began documenting everything quietly. Over the next months, as I continued my IT support role and project work, I noticed more red flags. Expense reports for luxury dinners with no client listed. Weekend trips are billed as consulting meetings. A $10,000 0-cents Rolex logged as a business development gift. I collected screenshots, bank statement copies, email trails, and date stamps. I cross-checked timesheets. He'd logged 8 hours on Fridays he left early. I documented harassment incidents, including the date, recipient, and witnesses. 16 victims, 27 incidents. The Squante campaign Varick criticized? My team had delayed it only because of his micromanagement, not because of my late arrival. Everything he claimed was false. That night in my cubicle, I realized I had something powerful. Evidence. Not gossip, documented proof. But I also realized the risk. Reporting it could destroy his career, but might also scorch mine. I logged into my personal email and began drafting the most important message of my life. I worked until midnight, structuring the email to the board chair. No emotion, just facts, timestamps, and labeled files. Documents included expense screenshots, billing logs, and harassment email chains. I formatted everything into a 30-page PDF titled Pattern of Concerning Behavior. My tone was measured. As a senior employee with a duty to report serious misconduct, here is what I know. I attached it, scheduled to send at 6 a.m. so it landed before Varick even arrived. Then I went home and didn't sleep. That next morning I arrived at 8:45 sharp, dressed in professional navy and white, designed to be unremarkable but exude competence. The office was buzzing, but Varick's door was dark. At 9 a.m. I got a text. Come to conference room C now. Diane Powell, the board chair, led the meeting. The board members sat around a massive table. Diane assured me whistleblower protection was applied. For an hour, they asked questions. How I retrieved emails, how finance records were accessed, and why now. I explained my fears of retaliation. They nodded solemnly. Diane said they'd verify the claims and handle confidentiality, then sent me back down to my floor. Moments later, Varick emerged, escorted by HR and security. His face was drawn, hands shaking as he cleared his desk. The office watched in silence as he stepped into an elevator for the last time. Chairs scraped, phones clacked. Everyone held their breath. When the doors closed, the room collectively exhaled. I was shaking. Victory? Relief? No. It was more complicated. Fear. What next? 3 p.m. I met Diane again. She told me Varick was terminated on the spot. Financial and harassment violations confirmed. My position would remain, but I'd need to sign a confidentiality agreement. Then came the surprise. She asked me to serve as acting chief marketing officer for 3 months. My first reaction was disbelief, but I said yes, and felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just the accused. I was the one holding the pen. Varick is gone. I'm stepping into leadership. But that's just the beginning. Tomorrow, journalists begin calling, lawsuits are filed, and investigators get involved. Most people think this story ends with his exit, but the real reckoning starts now. That night, I didn't celebrate. I sat on the edge of my bed, the city lights blinking outside my apartment window, thinking about what had just happened. Varick Reynolds, Eric, to some, was no longer with the company. The words sounded simple and final, but they echoed through my head like a warning bell. The board said my actions were protected, but I knew the storm was only beginning to form. I had exposed a man with power, wealth, and family connections. He wouldn't go quietly, even if he left quietly. The next morning, Rena arrived with coffee and a hopeful smile. "Everyone's talking about you, in a good way." But I waved off the praise. It's not over yet, and it wasn't. By 10 a.m., the corporate comms team had issued a vague statement. Vincent Harlow's departure reflects our ongoing commitment to accountability and ethical standards. It didn't say much, but it was enough to signal something serious had happened. By noon, whispers turned into theories. Some believed it was harassment. Others speculated fraud. Some asked me directly, but I repeated the company line. I can't comment on personnel matters. That evening, just as I was packing up to leave, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Miss Baker?" This is Bethany Williams from the Apex Ledger. We're running a story on Mr. Harlow's sudden departure and have heard multiple accounts suggesting misconduct. Would you be willing to comment?" My stomach twisted. I knew better than to speak to reporters, especially while bound by a confidentiality clause. "I'm sorry," I said. "You'll need to contact our communications department." She pushed again. "Can you confirm whether there was an internal investigation?" I repeated my line. "No comment." She sighed. "Understood. My deadline is noon tomorrow. If the company declines to respond, we'll note that." The next morning I called Diane. "The press knows," I said. She wasn't surprised. "It was inevitable," she said. "We'll issue a formal no comment. Legal's prepared." 2 days later, the article dropped. Marketing exec fired amid financial misconduct allegations. It was vague enough to protect privacy, but detailed enough to hint at what I'd revealed: client billings, expenses, and questionable conduct toward female staff. Within hours, it was trending on LinkedIn. Employees past and present shared it. That night, another blow landed. Varick filed a lawsuit against the company and against me personally: wrongful termination, defamation, and invasion of privacy. The summons came to my door on a Saturday morning. A thick envelope. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages. Every accusation made me feel like I was being punished for telling the truth. I called Diane again. "He's suing me," I said. She was called. "Please don't speak to him. We'll defend you. You are protected. Don't speak to him. Don't respond personally. We expected this." Still, that didn't stop the fear from crawling into my bones. The next weeks blurred into one long knot of depositions, emails, and whispered meetings. I kept showing up, running meetings, smoothing client concerns, and holding my team steady. But every time I logged into my work email, I half expected to see a new threat, a new leak, a new headline. Our attorneys submitted evidence, my emails, my documentation, all of it collected through my regular IT. Varick's team argued it was unauthorized snooping. Ours argued it was responsible documentation under whistleblower protections. Then something shifted. A detective from the Financial Crimes Unit reached out. "We're investigating Mr. Harlow for wire fraud and embezzlement," he said. "We want the office to receive your documentation during discovery. We'd like to ask a few questions." I spent 3 hours at the precinct walking detectives through the files, the invoices, and the altered bills. What I thought was corporate misconduct, they saw it as criminal. 2 weeks later, the news broke. Vincent Harlow was arrested on charges of fraud, falsification of records, and embezzlement. That morning, the office buzzed like a beehive. Phones rang nonstop. Journalists camped outside our building. Clients demanded answers. But inside, something else happened. A potted plant appeared on my desk. There is no card, just the names of everyone on my team, signed in permanent marker. Quiet solidarity. No speeches, just presence. That small gesture meant more than any headline. It said, "We know. We're with you." The board met the next day. Diane called me in. "You've weathered a storm with grace," she said, "and the company has come through it stronger. We want to remove the acting title. You're now Chief Marketing Officer, permanently." I stared at her, stunned. After everything? After fear, humiliation, lawsuits, exposure? I'd climbed to a position I never even dreamed I could reach. I nodded. "Thank you. I won't let you down." She smiled faintly. "You already haven't." The next day, I stood in front of my department, the same floor where Varick had humiliated me months before. "I want to start by acknowledging the transition we've all been through," I said. "Many of you have questions I can't answer, but I promise transparency and safety will be my top priorities." The team didn't cheer, but they listened. And that was enough. Over the next month, we rebuilt. I met with every team lead, we revised protocols, tightened expense oversight, and launched anti-harassment training. Not just a box-ticking session, but real conversations. One-on-ones became routine. Office energy changed. It was no longer about fear. It was about doing the work, knowing someone had your back. But even victories have shadows. As I settled into my new role, a deeper fear crept in. What if Verrett came back? What if someone else powerful decided I was expendable? The next challenge wasn't legal, it was cultural, and much harder to fix. The morning I stepped onto the executive floor as the official chief marketing officer, I felt two things simultaneously: pride and paranoia. Pride because I'd made it. Paranoia because I knew how fast a tide could turn. I'd exposed one predator, but who was watching me now? My every move felt scrutinized, as if someone was waiting for me to slip. Emails were more formal. Meetings were tenser. Even lunchroom chatter quieted when I entered. It wasn't just about my new title. It was the ripple of everything that had happened. The lawsuit, the arrest, and the investigation. I was the epicenter of a company-wide shift, and not everyone was comfortable with that. During a strategy meeting, one of the senior partners, Marshall Green, made a half-joking comment about Marlowe's FBI files. Laughter followed, but it wasn't the good kind. It was nervous testing. I let it pass in the moment, but later that day I met with Diane. "I'm noticing some resistance," I said carefully. "Pushback. Not overt, but present." She nodded slowly. "It's the adjustment. They're uncomfortable because you did what no one else would. That kind of courage unsettles people. But don't shrink. You're here because we believe in you." Even with that reassurance, I couldn't shake the discomfort. One evening, Rena stopped by my office. "You should see this," she said, sliding her tablet across my desk. It was a screenshot from an internal Slack channel, one I wasn't part of. Anonymous accounts mocking my rise, calling me Miss FBI, suggesting I'd slept my way to the top. It was cruel, baseless, but effective. My hands clenched the tablet. "Who runs this channel?" Rena hesitated. "Technically it's private, but it violates company policy." I nodded. "Send it to HR. I'll draft a statement for our department tomorrow." That night, I didn't sleep. Again. Instead, I drafted another document, this time not for the board or the press, but for my team. The next morning, I gathered the entire department in the largest conference room and handed out copies of the new Workplace Conduct Pledge. It wasn't just a policy, it was a culture reset. "I know change is hard," I told them. "But if we want this to be a place where everyone thrives, we need to start with how we treat each other. That includes accountability. For everyone." Eyes avoided mine, a few nodded, most just signed and returned it. But that afternoon, an unexpected email appeared. Subject: "Thank you." It was from Zay, the same finance colleague I helped months ago. She wrote, "For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I belong here. You've made it safe again." And that made everything worth it. Just when I thought the turbulence had settled, another twist surfaced. A former employee named Sasha reached out. She had left the company 2 years earlier, allegedly due to family issues, but in her email she revealed something else. "He harassed me too," she wrote, "but no one believed me. I didn't have evidence. I just wanted to disappear. When I saw your story, I finally felt seen. If there's anything I can do, let me know." I invited her for coffee. When we met, Sasha was visibly nervous. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," she said quickly. "I just wanted to say thank you." I thought I was the only one. That meeting stuck with me. It made me realize something essential. This wasn't just about corporate justice or personal promotion. It was about visibility, making it safe for people to exist without fear. And that meant the work wasn't done. At the next leadership offsite, I proposed a new mentorship program, Women Helping Women Across Departments. Diane supported it immediately. Marshall didn't. "Sounds like a PR stunt," he muttered during the presentation. "We already have HR." I smiled politely. "This isn't about PR. It's about retention, morale, and impact, and it's not optional." By the end of Q2, the mentorship pilot launched. 12 mentor-mentee pairs, monthly check-ins, anonymous feedback. Within weeks, it started to show results. Productivity improved, turnover slowed, even the Slack channel trolls went quiet. But then came another challenge. A massive client, Crestview Holdings, requested to meet only with a male senior officer moving forward. Their reason? Comfort and familiarity. It was sexist and infuriating, but legal danced around it. I met with our CEO, Diane's counterpart in operations, and laid it out. If we let this slide, we signal that comfort trumps capability. I won't condone it. The CEO hesitated. They're our biggest account. Then they should respect our leadership structure, I said. And if they don't, we'll find clients who do. It was a gamble, a big one, but 1 week later, Crestview agreed to meet with me. Not because they wanted to, but because we didn't back down. Quietly, I'd change policy from within, and the firm noticed. By now, you'd think I was in the clear. But success comes with shadows. An anonymous tip, a reopened lawsuit, and the one betrayal I never expected. What came next almost cost me everything. And hey, if this story resonates with you, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss how the rest of this journey unfolds. What happens next is proof that the past never stays buried. I should have known better than to think silence meant peace. A few weeks after the mentorship program gained traction, a message landed in my inbox. No sender name, no signature. Just a subject line, "You think you're safe." The body of the email was one sentence: "Check your back before you fall on your sword." My heart skipped. Was it a threat? A warning? I forwarded it to Diane and our cybersecurity team. They traced the message to an external IP, masked through multiple relays. It was impossible to confirm the origin. "Could be a prank," said IT. "Or someone trying to rattle you." Diane was more serious. "Let's elevate this internally," she said. "Increased digital monitoring. And be cautious until we know more. Assume nothing." For days I walked on eggshells. Every glance in the hallway felt loaded. Every Slack message and every email carried weight. But things escalated when I was notified of a legal subpoena. This is not from Verrick's team this time, but from a former client. Apparently during Verrick's time, some records had been altered, contracts misrepresented, hours falsified. They'd uncovered evidence during an audit and named me among others in their preliminary inquiry. My name was on those records, but I hadn't touched them. Still, perception mattered, and the risk was real. That night, I stayed late. Rena found me staring at my screen, frozen. "They're dragging you back in," she said quietly. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Doesn't matter," I whispered. "My name's there, and that's enough." I worked through files, calendar logs, client correspondence, anything to prove I hadn't signed off on those transactions. At 10:45 p.m., I found it. An internal timestamp in our project software showed the edits were made after I'd handed the project to Verrick's direct team. The changes were logged under his executive ID, not mine. I documented it, timestamped the evidence, and sent it to legal. The next morning, our counsel replied, "Clear, we'll exclude you from the inquiry." Relief washed over me, but it didn't last. Later that day, I discovered something worse. Someone from inside my own team had attempted to leak internal memos to the press. HR caught it before it left the firewall. The employee had used my name in the draft, likely as a decoy. I called a department meeting immediately. "This breach," I told them, "puts our work, our credibility, and our values at risk. We will not tolerate deception. We will not sacrifice integrity for scandal." I didn't name names. HR would handle that, but the message was clear. Then came the betrayal I hadn't expected. Diane called me in and closed the door. "Marshall Green is under investigation," she said. "He's been sharing confidential information with external contacts, including details about your whistleblower report." My stomach dropped. Marshall? The one who smirked during meetings, joked about my documents, and claimed to support company unity? Why would he? I asked. Diane hesitated. "He saw your rise as a threat. We believe he thought leaking internal strife would stall your progress. In other words, he wanted to knock me down, maybe even force me out. And he wasn't the only one. In the following days, anonymous complaints flooded HR, claims that I was creating a hostile environment, that I favored women, that I was on a mission." HR investigated. Again. One by one, they interviewed team members. One by one, the claims fell apart. Baseless, the report said. Retaliatory and unfounded. I should have been relieved. But it only made me more determined. They wanted me out. They wanted me scared. Instead, I doubled down. I launched an internal audit of every department under my control, not as retaliation, but as reassurance. If there were cracks, I wanted them exposed by us, not the press, not the courts. And the findings shocked even me. In just 3 weeks, we uncovered 6 dormant accounts, still accessing financial systems, 3 ghost contractors who'd been paid for months, and dozens of overdue vendor reconciliations. This, I told my department heads, is not about punishment, it's about prevention. We clean our house before someone else does. The audit ended with a 57-page report reviewed by Diane and the board. Afterward, I received a call from the company's general counsel. "You've not only survived chaos," he said, "you've rebuilt structure." That's rare. I didn't know what to say, so I just said thank you. But even as the praise came, I felt the weight of it. Leadership wasn't just visibility, it was constant vigilance. Then, in the middle of that whirlwind, I got a text from Sasha, the former employee who'd thanked me. "Would you come to speak at our alumni panel?" she asked. "It's a Women in Leadership event at my university. Your story matters." I hesitated. I wasn't used to being on stage. I wasn't a speaker. I was a strategist, a behind-the-scenes fixer. But something in her voice, in her story, reminded me why I'd spoken up in the first place. So I said yes. That night, in a quiet lecture hall filled with students, I shared the story, not the scandal, not the court case, but the truth, about courage, about risk, about the cost of integrity. When I finished, a young woman in the front row raised her hand. "What if you're scared?" she asked. I paused. "You'll be scared," I told her, "but courage isn't about not feeling fear, it's about acting despite it." But even after surviving every test, the final blow came from the last place I expected. A single anonymous email, a whisper from the past, and a decision that would make or break my future. What happened next would define everything. 3 months after my keynote at the alumni panel, I received another anonymous message. It looked like spam at first, poor formatting and strange phrasing. But then I saw the attachment, a scanned copy of a memo dated 5 years ago from my first year at the company. It had my name typed at the bottom, approving an internal marketing budget shift that had since become controversial. The issue? I never wrote that memo. I wasn't even on that project. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone was spoofing my name. But as I looked closer, I realized the signature matched my digital file exactly. My old password. Someone had accessed archived files, used my credentials, and signed off on a decision that rerouted nearly $80,000, 0 cents, in project funds to a now-defunct initiative run by, of all people, Marshall Green. It was a final act of sabotage, buried in history, now dug up to smear my name. I took it straight to Diane. She reviewed it in silence, then handed it to our head of internal audit. "We'll confirm the metadata, but if what you're saying is true, this isn't just unethical, it's criminal." 3 days later, they had the proof. The file was forged. The access came from Marshall's ID, but the timestamp had been masked. He'd used a backdoor login created before his departure. He thought no one would ever find it. But someone had, and now it was in the right hands. The board met in an emergency session. Not only was Marshall stripped of all residual benefits, but the company filed a civil suit against him for data tampering and breach of fiduciary duty. He went quiet. No statement, no denial, just gone. And with that, the last ghost of the old regime vanished. The dust finally settled, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt something strange. Peace. Real peace. The company was thriving. Clients returned. Employees opened up. The mentorship program was now standard practice. We'd expanded it to include career path coaching, legal workshops, and anonymous reporting systems that actually worked. I watched women I had mentored rise into leadership roles. I watched men become better allies. I watched the culture shift, not because of a handbook, but because of a lived example. One afternoon, Za from finance approached my office. "Do you remember when this started?" she asked. "When you stood in that conference room and said we deserved better?" I nodded. "You meant it," she said. "That's why it worked." That meant everything. 6 months later, I received a letter in the mail. A physical letter, not an email. It was from Eliza, a former intern who had left the company during Varick's tenure. Her words were careful but powerful. "I blamed myself," she wrote. "I thought I was weak, but now I know I was just unsupported. You gave me back my voice. I'm back in school now, getting my MBA. Thank you." I kept that letter in my desk drawer, still do, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Because none of this was about revenge, it wasn't about destroying someone's career. It was about protecting everyone else from being destroyed in silence. Looking back, that infamous moment, being paraded for being 3 minutes late, was a spark. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't want to be the face of anything. But I couldn't unsee what I saw. I couldn't know what I knew. And that choice, to act, to document, to speak, altered the trajectory of my life forever. The firm where I once felt invisible now bears the mark of my values. The people who once avoided eye contact now seek advice. The office where I was humiliated became the space where I reclaimed my power. That's the irony of power. It isn't given, it's taken back. Today, I'm still here. Not because I'm fearless, but because I learned that fear doesn't own me. I've testified before industry panels. I've trained other companies in whistleblower protections. And every time someone asks how it started, I tell them, with 3 minutes. 3 minutes and a choice to not stay quiet. If you're watching this because you're at your breaking point, I hope this story helps you find your voice. I hope it shows that justice might be slow, but it's possible. That culture can change, even if you have to drag it forward, and that you're never as alone as you think you are. After being publicly humiliated by her boss for a 3-minute delay, Marlo uncovered a network of misconduct, harassment, and fraud inside her company. Through careful documentation and courage, she triggered an internal reckoning that led to the downfall of a powerful executive, a lawsuit, and, eventually, a full cultural transformation. Despite retaliation, betrayal, and immense pressure, Marlo rose to become the company's chief marketing officer, using her influence to build a safer, more accountable workplace for everyone. Now, I have a question for you. If you were in Marlo's position, what would you have done? Option A, stay quiet, keep your head down, and protect your career. Option B, speak up, risk everything, but fight for what's right. Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think.